Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, pay my respects to their ancestors past and present, and extend that to each and every one of you tonight. And Uncle Alan, thanks for the welcome to country earlier. It was fantastic. So my name's Synnott. I've been at the Sports Commission now for just under 9 years. Previous to that, I was working in Sport and Rec in the ACT, managing all things officiating. So tonight, you're lucky enough to have me for about 20 minutes. As Nunny said, I could probably talk around officiating and data around officiating. I love data for about 3-4 hours, 3 weeks, if possible. So this 2016 officiating survey, there was a number of key objectives that we wanted to get out of it. So it was the profiling of current officiating participation, reasons for discontinuing if lapsed, and we were really lucky enough to get a really good cohort of officials that have left sport, and getting a really good understanding on why they did leave and would they come back and why would they come back. The understanding of pathways and provisions, evaluation of sport officiating structures, understanding the drivers and the challenges. Really, really important stuff for you guys to think about throughout the rest of the night, throughout the rest of your career, but also to challenge your sports. Ask the question, what can you do? NSO, SSO, what can you do to help support us? Accreditation and training, likelihood to continue officiating. So how many officials are out there? Are you going to continue? What's going to keep you around? And the demographics of the profiling. So we had 92% current officials and 8% lapsed. So I think that works out to be about 460 odd. We had just over 6,000 responses from this survey. So 6,081 full responses, but then we also had an additional 1,200, 1,400 partial responses. So they're guys who got through the survey or halfway through the survey, then pulled up. So it was quite long, it's lengthy, but from all the testing and interviewing that we did leading into it, that the officials loved finally being able to have their say and contribute, and hopefully with the information that we've collected, we can work with the sports to create better environments and pathways and so on. So who participated? 64 different sports participated in the survey. You can see here we've got AFL at top with 11%, hockey, cricket, football, basketball, and then it works down by percentages. So a little bit more into the demographics, 68% male, 32% female, which is a really, really good result at the moment. You can imagine how many females are out there. Officiating's quite male dominated, but to have 32% female respondents is fantastic. Queensland, really good. 23% of all the respondents were from Queensland. So it gives us a really good data set to work with you guys and work through the other 4 presentations over the next 2 weeks with as well. The Thursday day session, we actually got more administrators, more NSOs, more SSOs, so people on the ground coming along, and we're going to get a little bit more into the data, but actually do some workshopping. So this session's going to go for about 5 hours. So we've got a fair bit planned for that. Age demographics, you wouldn't be surprised with this one, 60 plus, 21%. It's a bit of a theme here. 45 to 55, 26%, 35 to 44. But what is really good, you're 15 to 18, so we're 9%. So this is the future of officiating. And this is who we need to support. This is who we need to get our NSOs and SSOs to support leading into the future. So pathways. So the average age of officials when they first come into your sport. Throughout some of my slides, you'll notice there's little arrows down, little arrows up. What this means, so arrows down, is the number is significantly lower than what we expected. And vice versa, with arrows up, they're higher than what we expected. And you'll see that on some of my slides tonight. So find your sport there. Basketball was really interesting, 16.8, the average age of a basketball official when they start officiating. So it goes right through. AFL was an interesting one as well, 25.8. And when we made some phone calls, had some focus groups and spoke to the AFL officials, it was more because, and you'll see on some of the latest slides, that their career, they had exhausted every last option to play, and then they went, cool, I want to stay involved in the game, I'm going to become an official. Archery, rowing, croquet, life-saving, sailing, we're all talking around high 30s, and croquet 55 plus when you start officiating. These are some of the numbers, especially in your swimmings, cricket, cyclings, sailings. These ones here, Olympic sports, Commonwealth sports. not good enough. So we need to work with the sports to get their numbers down around this far. So Queensland officials are typically playing sport. So 82% of Queensland officials were playing sport when they started officiating. Recreationally, competitive, elite, and then we had involved as spectators, coaches, and then only 3% of the respondents weren't doing anything within sport before they became an official, and that's Queensland data. So how did they get into it? Over 53% of officials that responded to the survey were asked to be an official. So they were either asked by the organisation, by another official at the time, asked by the coach, or by a family teammate or a player. But what is really interesting, we got 28% of the respondents were off their own back. They wanted to be an official. They thought, you know what, I want to pick up that whistle, I'm going to get out there, I'm going to do it. And in the cohort of 10 to 14-year-olds, that was the highest rating. So you would expect mum and dad going, come on, you need to referee, umpire, judge, whatever it may be. But 10 to 14-year-olds, they're the ones making the choice, saying, I want to be an official. And they're getting out there and doing it. I was only saying to the guys last night, or it could have been this morning, my little fella, 9 years old, came to me the other day, and obviously I must talk about officiating a fair bit at home. Dad, I don't want to play anymore. Oh, you don't want to play Oz kick? No, I want to umpire the AFL Grand Final. So I've gone, get out. You're straight out the door. No, you're not officiating. And then just joking, mate. So straight back, wants to be a referee, wants to be an umpire. Fantastic stuff. So this one here, the officiating drivers. So this is initial reasons for officiating versus current reasons for officiating. I would say this is probably my favourite slide out of my whole, favourite data capture and favourite slide out of my presentation. There's so much fantastic information in this one slide. You'll see the y-axis, so that's initial reasons for officiating, so up the side here, versus your x-axis, so your current reasons. So the highest influences at initiation, so coming into it, I was playing a sport and to challenge myself at something new and different. Really great. Great to hear. So why are they still here? To keep fit, challenge myself, interested in officiating at a higher level. Mildly. Up at the top here, to help out teams of sports. So this is your sustained influence. So if sports can create a product to help support this cohort, you're going to have a lot more officials around for a longer time. The best point up here is the top one up here, for the love of the game. Officials are there because they love it. They're not here, down here, for the accolades. They're not here for free tickets. They're not here for a cool polo shirt. Some of you probably will disagree, but this is data doesn't lie. They're not there for the pay or remuneration. They're here because they love it and they want to stay involved. It's a really powerful slide, that one. Variations in initial motivation. So now we break that last slide down a little bit further. 3 different cohorts. We've got our under 18s, 18 to 34s, and our 35s plus. And I think you guys have all got copies of these as well. So the young guys, they come into it for money, for cash. Bit of pocket money, fill the petrol tank when you're 17, 18, whatever it may be. Keep fit, challenge myself, and stay involved. So they're probably your more 16, 17, 18s. Next cohort, 18 to 34s. You can see a bit of a shift. It's to keep fit, challenge myself, stay involved, help support the sports. So they're getting a little bit more mature, they're around for a little bit longer, they want to give back to the sport. Then your 35s plus, to help support, they're not playing anymore, they want to be involved, help out the team, help out the sports. Kids are playing. How many people in the room started officiating because their kids are there? Or were the last person to step backwards, like I am most Saturday mornings at Oz Kick? Always hold the whistle behind my back and just wait and wait and wait. Yeah, I'll do it. All right, I'm in. And then camaraderie and friendships. So these guys who start over this side, you build a lifetime of friendships. Lifetime of friends, colleagues, acquaintances. You meet up at a national tournament or national carnival, you haven't seen these guys for years, or since the last one. So then we broke it down even further. So variations in current motivations. So they're your initial motivations, and these are why people are still involved. So the last slide was getting involved, and this is still involved. 4 cohorts, 12 to 18, 19, 34, and so on. Young guys, they're still there for the cash. They want some pocket money, they want to get spent on video games, whatever it is. And then the next cohort, they want to be around, in here, interested in officiating at a higher level. They've been involved for a little while. They get a bit of a taste of it. Jared, you probably attest to this as well, and the other guys you'll hear from today. They want to be a part of it. They want to take that next step. You want to do the best you can do. Get mentoring. So you've seen these other officials within your sport. You want to learn from them. You want to learn from the best. And mentoring is critical to any official's development, and I'll test that. Helping out teams. Child was playing the sports. Here we are again. Kids are still playing. That's the group I'd be in. The kids are still playing, so I'm officiating. To mentor and work with the youth. So this is where it shifts to your 35s to 54s and your 55s pluses. You want to give back. You want to help the young kids coming through because you've enjoyed it. You've made friendships. You've got the camaraderie. You've been around forever. You've had those experiences. You want to give back to the sport. And then staying involved in the game, you've got a place. You feel like you're included somewhere. You've got friends and so on. And then you help support. So some really good slides there. Interest in officiating at a higher level. So this is taking the next step. So looking at this slide here, on the left-hand side, you've got, was it 44% are very or extremely interested in taking that next step. Another 18, moderately, I wouldn't mind doing it. But the column here, so the groups most or least interested in elite level officiating. So this is taking that next step. So you see here, international competition. So these guys are already there, and they do want to keep progressing. Tennis officials. Got any tennis officials in the room? Shannon, Rob, why did you continue? You want Grand Slams, international travel, all of those sort of things. It's this big picture. What do you want to do? Full-time officials, football officials, Queensland officials. Across the country, Queensland officials, I think the next one was about 17%, and that was New South Wales officials. So Queensland officials want to progress. Maybe because it's better weather up here, you can officiate most of the year. In Canberra, you don't want to officiate at 8 o'clock at night on a Tuesday in the middle of winter. So biggest challenges in officiating: the personal cost, so time commitments, as well as lack of resourcing and respect for the professionalism. And you'll see a common theme around respect, politics, resources, really consistent. Queensland specific, the biggest challenges in officiating are politics in sport, lack of funding, and the personal cost. So this is that last slide broken down just to Queensland, and you should have a copy of those, so there's a lot of text up there. So most consider the structure and the management of officials in their sport to be above average, which is really good, with high ratings for the elite and professional levels. So the column on the left, that's grassroots. So most see the structure and the management, so of your state sporting organisation or your national sporting organisation, 55% is good or very good. So that's could be better, but it's not that bad. And 30% average, but then perception of the elite environment, 75%. But then in comparison to other sports, when the question says, how do you view your sport against others, you've got here 59% saying it's good or very good compared to the sport next door. So that's that perception of how your organisation's going. It's only 59%, so it's still not good. That makes it look good, but it should be in very good. So last slide, broken down sport by sport. And you'll notice here, so the light blue bars are grassroots, and the dark blue bars are elite. So you see the difference. Every sport there has a perception that the elite environment is better managed than the grassroots environment. This really good over here, AFL, as you'd expect. Triathlon, really surprising, 72 and 93. They're fantastic numbers. Is anyone here from triathlon? Yep. The work that Amy and Lucas are doing in there is absolutely phenomenal. Their new frameworks and pathways and structures are about to be released. It's not far off. One of the best documents I've seen in regards to pathways. So they're doing some really great work. What is concerning is look at the lower ranked sports: rowing, cycling, hockey, volleyball, Olympic sports, Commonwealth sports. Look at their officiating. Grassroots, what are they doing? Absolutely nothing. Elite, 67, 50, 69. These are not good numbers for officiating. So that's next slide. That's that last slide broken down even further. Again, we've got here the top sports that are doing it well, so good, very good, poor, very poor. And again, look at these sports here, a lot of work to do. Since we did the survey, Basketball Australia have got a new pathway, a new framework, new education. They're going to be rolling it out hopefully soon, so it'll be interesting to see what's different over the next 1 to 2 years. So the importance for ensuring sustainability and development of officiating talent. So all these are seen as imperatives. So every one of these comments down the side here, it came back as imperatives. Must-haves, nice-to-haves, not necessaries. Must-have, nice-to-haves, remuneration. No, it's nice, but it's not a must-have. Where respect for the officiating profession, training and development, communication. This one's really interesting. Communication relating to match schedule attendance, particularly at grassroots levels. That's where one of the biggest issues for officials are, the communication coming out of the office. Where are you? When are you there? What time do you have to be there? What resources do you have? Who's going to be there to support you? All of that sort of information. This is what sports are not doing well. So even recruitment, 69%, 29%. Most sports will find that they get a lot of officials in the door, but most sports will also find they've got a higher rate, a higher churn rate, as you call it, of officials leaving. So there's always a big issue about retention, not so much around recruitment, which is really interesting. So there's a lot of work to be done to raise the support for development of officiating talent within sport. Sufficient funding is likely to underpin. So again, interesting slide. So things that we need to address, and there's 4 columns here. So poor, average, good, very good. Look at the very good column. It's looking a bit lonely there. Address, funding. Every time we say to a sport, what can we do better? We want funding, we want funding, we want funding. The reality is, officiating's not going to get it. Officiating, there is not an extra hand or bucket of money just for officials. We need to deal with what we've got. We need to leverage resources. We need to leverage relationships. We need to leverage other sports and partnerships, and that's critical to moving forward. We don't have the luxuries of being the firstborn child, your athlete, or the last-born child, your coach. Officials, we're the middle children. I'm a middle child, don't worry. What do we need to do to improve respect for officiating? So this is all the average. So this is okay, it's there. Maintain and enhance training and development, formal accreditation process, pathways for progression, and so on. So there's a lot of work to be done. Most sports appear to have good coordinators, education and assessment. Funded officials or funded sports receive less around your development. So this is one of our internal slides, but I thought I'd share it with everybody because I see it quite critical to explain. Assessors, so your ASC funded sports, only 56% of your funded sports, so your big sports, Olympic sports, 56% have assessment processes in place. Non-funded sports, 42% of assessing or quality assessing. The more concerning is your assigned mentors. So that's not necessarily Chris, your Ash's mentor, and this is the way you run. It's more around having informal relationships, formal relationships, mentoring processes in place, or what? 30% of funded sports have mentoring programs, and non-funded sports, 17%. So any of the guys in the room who've come through the scholarship program, you'll understand that probably the most critical thing out of the whole program was your relationship with the mentor, the guidance, the support. And remembering that the mentors, they're not your coach, they're your mentor. So Queensland officials incur many costs, out-of-pocket transport, gear and courses, so development and their own time. So you look here, 57%, 69%. So these are out of pocket, and look at the little bits here that are reimbursed. But again, that's not the critical issue for officials, especially in Queensland. So officials spend a substantial amount, sometimes up well over $1,000, but most are around that 300 to 600 or 600 and more. So Queensland attitudes towards it, I don't mind at all, it's no issue. And generally, how many of us do that? How many of us spend so much money to be an official and go, don't worry about it, I'll just do it because, go back to that previous slide, you do it because you love it. You do it because you feel involved. It's a bit annoying, It's a real pain, and then there's only 7% saying it's a deal breaker. We could break those down even further, like Nani said, with the data. I could go on and on and on. We've gone down sport by sport, state by state, and so on. So the data set that we've got is really good and quite easy to break down. So accreditation is typically required when officials start, provided through a national or state association, although this is less stringent for non-funded sports. So 81% of funded sports require accreditation as soon as you step in the door to become official. That number should be nearing 100. When you take into consider managing environment, managing children, managing other people, managing the ground, all that sort of stuff. Non-funded, 64%. So you're walking into a non-funded sport, yep, there you go, there's a whistle, off you go, thank you very much, and that's it. So quite alarming, those numbers. So that was actually higher than we thought, and 64% was quite lower. But in Queensland, 83% of sports, or 83% of the officials that answered the survey, they had to do some formal qualifications, and 15% didn't, and then these 2%, they were unsure what they did when they came in. Which is quite concerning, again. Don't give them the whistle. So, interest in more training, you got here, you got 26, 33, so 59% are either very interested or extremely interested in taking more education. Another 26 moderately, so you're looking at 85% still interested in education and training, and the preference being a combination of online and face-to-face. Online's important. It's a good ground setter. It's a good exposure to what could happen, but you don't get that real training until you do a face-to-face course. But the sports need a lot of work, and Toby, you'd agree with this from years and years of working with sports, that the face-to-face stuff isn't about tests. It's practical. Get out and do stuff. It's not about sitting and reading a book. Okay, only a couple more slides. Officials use a range of resources, so how officials keep up to date in their officiating skills and requirements. Watching other officials. 50% of the respondents watch other officials to learn. Good, could be bad, you could be learning bad habits, but still good to watch. Updates from your sporting organisation, more experienced senior officials, so that also relates to mentoring and understanding. Existing resources, officiating seminars, but through other officials at the same level. This is this teamwork, this is this camaraderie, this is enjoying feeling part of something and learning from each other. How many of you guys get in the same room or you sit down with another official and you kind of co-assess your game or chat about it? Oh, I could have done this better. Oh, yeah, I could have done that better. Oh, yeah, you did that better. So it's more around supporting each other. Officiating in the future. So there's a high likelihood to continue officiating among officials surveyed, particularly those at more senior levels. So to continue officiating, you've got 79% there are likely or very likely, somewhat likely. And these are groups most likely to continue. Full-time officials, national officiating, so these are the guys who come through the scholarship program. Cricket officials, they're really keen to continue. Sean Easy and his team in cricket have set up a really good education and training program. They've got great support. They look after their officials. They make them feel valued and welcome. So that's why they rate so high. And then down the bottom, basketball, as I said before, they addressed this issue as soon as his results came out. We worked on their framework, we worked on their curriculum, we worked on their education delivery methods. So it'll be interesting to see how high this jumps. Female officials, quite low. This is interesting, top 7 funded sports are less likely to continue. So key obstacles for officials, 33% politics in the sport. It's not even an issue around training or the environment or being on the field or abuse, it's the politics. Politics. Who thought there'd be politics in sport? There's more politics in sport than there is in politics at the moment. Lack of respect for coaches here, lack of respect from spectators, commitments and financial. What have we got here? Sustainability of officiating talent. So these are all imperatives as well. Training and development, rules and compliance for poor behaviour. Rules and compliance for poor behaviour, education, mentors, and so on. So these are must-haves, nice-to-haves, not necessary, and a put-off. So this is our cohort who had actually left officiating. So I think we had 438 officials responded who are no longer officiating. These are the reasons why. Couldn't commit to officiating, politics. I lost interest, not receiving enough support. And then you look at your Queensland cohort, huge jump, took on a different role. So it's just like, couldn't be bothered anymore, I'm done. Too easy to leave. The sport itself made it too easy for these guys to leave. Next one, couldn't commit, politics, and then I think not receiving enough support from the organisation. Consistent theme. This is my last slide. Many reasons likelihood to officiate in the future. So this is national. So this is across all respondents. So you got here, very likely and likely. 24% of all officials who have left are likely to return. Queensland specific, 59% are likely to return. Likely or very likely, then if you throw in your 31% for somewhat likely, 90% of officials in Queensland who have left want to return. So you look back at some of those environment things, you fix those up, you're getting 90% of your officials that have left back. How are you going to support them? How are you going to educate them? How are you going to train them? And so on. And that's it from me. So in saying that, there's a lot of data and a lot of information. You've got some printouts. If you want to have a bit more of a chat about it in the break, come and grab me. But keep some of those data and some of that stats in the back of your head throughout the rest of the night, and listen to the panel, listen to Jared's case study at the end of the night. It's really important that these things, and they resonate with you quite well, but when you hear the panel start talking about their challenges, their successes, and what they would do if they went back to the sport for a week and worked in an organisation, and how they could help sport. So these are the things that you need to take back to your sport and ask the question. It's something I live by. If you don't ask, you don't get. So thanks.